Hello, welcome back to the garden. Let's see what we can harvest today. I planted these on July 1st, Canada Day, and they look like they're ready. So funny, I said this year I wasn't going to grow radishes because I don't like them, but a lot of you suggested pickling radishes, so I'm going to try that. These ones look a little lopsided. Tiny one. A lot of these didn't work. I think maybe they're too crowded. I should have thinned them out a little bit more. A little handful of radishes and a whole bunch that didn't work. I also underplanted a bunch of lettuce under all of these beans, and I think I'm going to harvest those as little baby lettuce so that I can give my beans some breathing room. We've had a lot of powdery mildew and pest pressure this year, so I'm harvesting these before it gets too crowded in here. I also densely planted these beans, so I didn't give it much room in here to begin with. But I love underplanting. It utilizes the space when the seedlings are still really small before these beans take over, and you get a little tiny harvest from the same bed that you would normally just use mulch in. Look at all this beautiful lettuce. It definitely doesn't get as big as it would without the beans shading them, but you get a little tiny harvest. I'm just cutting it down to the base so that the roots stay in there. I've been experimenting a lot this year, and some things work and some things don't, but I definitely will be using more underplanting in the future. Oh my gosh, I almost cut my finger off. I tried to get out in the garden yesterday, but it was so hot, and I tried at like 1 p.m, probably the hottest part of the day, and I came and sat out in the garden. I was like, nope, that's not happening. And then I went and sat in the shade, and the kids played in their little pool, dunked my feet in the water. So nice. I can't stand the heat very well now that I'm in my 30s. I used to be able to do it really well. When I was in my 20s, I would sunbathe all the time, and now I can't even be out in the garden for like 5 minutes while it's sunny. So we're doing this harvest in the morning to avoid the heat. Oh, I'm right in front of a leaf. Sorry. Little basket of lettuce. And now there's a little bit of space in front of this garden bed, so I'm gonna plant maybe radishes again. Haven't decided yet. Okay, next we have a bunch of tomatoes. These are Sweet Million cherry tomatoes. And we've got some tie-dye tomatoes here. I don't know if they're ready yet though. And then we've got some big Gardener's Delight cherry tomatoes in here. That's it for this bed. We've got a bunch of cherry tomatoes and then one Roma tomato. Now let's grab all of these Roma tomatoes. I don't know why, but I decided not to use tomato cages this year, and I regret it very deeply. They are growing crazy in here. There's no support, and it's kind of just a big mess. Okay, we've got a bunch of Roma tomatoes from this bed. A beautiful basket of fresh tomatoes. We've got a few slicer cucumbers in here, and then a couple pickling on this side. Got 5 slicer cucumbers and 2 pickling cucumbers. I'm hoping we can harvest some beans. It looks like there's a ton hiding in here. A lot of purple beans that I can see. So let's see what we can find. Oh my gosh, look. I accidentally dropped my mic in the garden bed, so I just have to fill this in with a little voiceover. For this bean teepee, I planted purple and green beans. I did a first planting in the beginning of May, and then a couple weeks later I planted some more and filled in any spots. I planted the purple beans and the green beans at the same time, but the purple beans are the first ones to be harvested. This bean teepee works really well if you want a low cost and effective way to grow vertically. But I planted a lot of beans on this bean teepee, and a lot of them have taken over the arch that was right beside them. So next year, I think I'm going to dedicate a whole arch to my beans. I think having them on an arch will make them a lot easier to pick. And our family does eat a lot of beans, and they freeze really well, so we eat them throughout the whole winter too. In this garden harvest, we're harvesting a handful of purple beans. No green beans yet, but they'll be here shortly. I love planting purple beans because they give me an opportunity to add a little bit of color to the garden. Next, we're harvesting a whole bunch of basil. This is the basil that I grew from seed. It's called Sweet Basil from West Coast Seeds. I highly recommend this basil. It was so easy to grow from seed, and it's just giving us a ton of basil this year. I've been making a lot of pesto and just adding them to all sorts of different summer dishes. I planted basil all throughout my garden, but one of my favorite spots this year was underneath my tomato plants. I'm growing my tomatoes up a string trellis,
and I pruned about a foot of the lower branches so it gave the basil a ton of sun, and it's a great way to utilize all of this space that's underneath my tomatoes. Next, we're gonna harvest a whole bunch of kale. Kale is one of the first things that I plant in my garden in early spring, and it lasts throughout almost the whole summer. Right now we're in peak summer, so we're getting a ton of pest pressure.
A lot of these are covered in aphids, so they're just gonna go in the compost. That time of year when pests are taking over. This is what I'm talking about. That's gross. Big basket of kale. I'm gonna harvest some broccolini. I'm gonna not harvest the flower ones. When they start to flower, they're very tough to eat. So I'm gonna leave those ones for the pollinators. Just harvest the tender ones. And I think I'm gonna pull all of this broccolini out maybe this week so that I can plant a fall harvest. Probably the last little bundle of broccolini from these plants. Next, I'm gonna harvest all of these chives. They're starting to flop over, so I'm gonna give them a good haircut. This one desperately needs it as well. We've got a big bundle of beautiful chives. We've got a bunch of blueberries that need to be picked. We also have some of these pink lemonade blueberries. So they're blueberries, but they're pink. Beautiful bowl of blueberries. Okay, that is it for today. We've got radishes, broccolini, cherry tomatoes, Roma tomatoes, pickling cucumbers, slicer cucumbers, some chives, some purple beans, some basil, some lettuce, some blueberries, and a big basket of kale.